Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, saying the province could finally see an end to significant new waves of COVID-19 infection in 6 to 8 months, but it requires at least 90% of Ontario residents getting fully vaccinated. Will we ever get to that point? Vaccinations have slowed and are stubbornly sitting around 75%. Ontario is now into a fourth wave fueled by the Delta variant, the majority of new cases among people either not vaccinated or not fully vaccinated. Now, it's possible we could be dealing with 1,200 new cases of COVID-19 by the middle of September. Dr. Moore says he's happy to see the growing number of businesses and venues in Ontario now requiring proof of vaccination. But head of critical care at Toronto's Michael Garron Hospital calling Moore's update yesterday sad. Dr. Michael Warner posting on Twitter that the province is deflecting its responsibility and lacking courage to take action on its own. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, heads up for showers and thunderstorms today, mainly for the afternoon into the evening. The high 32 degrees will feel like 38 with the humidity 21 for the low. More scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning, then becoming partly cloudy. The high, though, still quite warm, 31. For today, the high 32.
And right now, under the heat warning in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 21 degrees. It does feel like 28. Less than 2 weeks to the start of a new school year, the Ottawa Carleton District School Board heard from Public Health last night. Associate Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Brent Malachny, told the board there are benefits to children in kindergarten wearing masks. Malachny also says there are benefits to mandatory vaccines for all staff and said that it's up to the employer to determine. We'll have more from a school board trustee coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show. Ottawa Catholic School Board has released its fall back-to-school COVID plan. The board included additional precautions, things like field trips and large group indoor assemblies and non-essential visitors, all on hold. In addition, the board says over $15 million has been invested in the ventilation systems in schools and close to $26 million overall for COVID projects. The OCDSB will also be limiting the mixing of cohorts wherever possible for the first month of the school year. All Ottawa hospitals will require everyone in their buildings, from staff to volunteers, to be fully vaccinated this fall. The Ottawa, Queensway, Carleton, Bruyere, and Montfort all joining CHEO in mandating full vaccination by October 15th. All have asked for the first dose for everyone be administered by September 7th. Exceptions are those with a human rights exemption or documented medical reason for not getting a shot. Poland has become the first Western country to end its airlift from Afghanistan. Its deputy foreign minister says the country simply can't risk the lives of diplomats and soldiers any longer. What's not clear is how much longer Canada's mission will continue. Justin Trudeau has offered to keep the military in Afghanistan after Tuesday's deadline for U.S. troops to leave. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And the polls say the Liberals are in the lead. Or the Conservatives are in the lead. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show. The polls. Nanos. Nightly tracking numbers. It's the Liberals in the lead. Liberals. 35.9. 35.9. Conservatives 32.7. NDP 16.8. So that's on the high side for the Liberals these days. It would seem to be coming at the expense of the NDP. Maybe some of that soft NDP support that we talked about yesterday is starting to leak over to the Liberals. Meantime, ECOS, nightly tracking numbers, August 24th, yesterday. It's the Conservatives in the lead, but it's an itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny lead. Conservatives in the lead, 32.8. Liberals, 32.0. NDP 19.6. And all of a sudden, Ecos has a tighter race in Ontario, where it looked as though the Conservatives were opening up a wider lead. Now the lead is down to 2 points, 39 to 37, still favoring the Conservatives. At Main Street, the iPolitics pollsters, it's the Conservatives in the lead. 33.7 for the Conservatives, Liberals 31.2, NDP 19, and the Conservatives with a 3-point lead in Ontario, 35 to 32. So who's winning? All depends on who you ask. Yeah, here we are. We're about a dozen days into the election campaign, and hey, it was never supposed to be this way for the Liberals. It was never supposed to be this difficult. Trudeau called the election because he must have thought, I got this thing in the bag. Yeah, well, so much for that. But a long way to go yet. Short time to get there. 26 days till they start counting the votes. So we're all over the election campaign today here on the Rob Snow Show. You bet we are. We have Mr. Singh doing an event at 10 o'clock in Windsor-Tecumseh. We'll be listening in. O'Toole has an event at 11:30 this morning. He is leaving his bunker in the Westin Hotel here in Ottawa. And he's hitting the road, stumping in Brantford. And then later in Hamilton, Justin Trudeau out on the West Coast today in a riding called South Surrey White Rock. It was a Conservative riding at election time. The Liberals, they'd love to turn it red. Some of the headlines this morning. Not Liberal friendly, you would have to think. Globe front page this morning, Globe and Mail front page. Time cut short on Canadian rescue mission in Afghanistan. We literally have a few days left at best. National Post. Just below the fold, front page. Tom Blackwell, giant font, catastrophe. Catastrophe in Afghanistan. Catastrophe in Afghanistan. And also, interesting column here. O'Toole pushes for blue wave. I encourage everyone to read Bob Fife and Steve Chase this morning. They have a really interesting read. It's front page below the fold, Globe Mail this morning. Encourage everyone to read it this morning. It is headlined, Chinese state-owned shipbuilder to supply ferry for a Crown corporation as Kovrig and Spaver languish in jail. Okay. Front page news. Front page news. Great scoop, by the way. And it is about a new passenger ferry that would be operated by Marine Atlantic out of my hometown, North Sydney, Nova Scotia, going to Port aux Basques, Newfoundland. Marine Atlantic is a Crown corporation. And it originally gave this contract to build this ship to a company called Stena North Sea, which is based in Sweden. That company turned around, subcontracted to the work to China Merchants Group and its shipyard unit. So you can just imagine how this is going over in the Canadian shipbuilding industry. That would be not very well. $100 million worth of business here. And for a Canadian Crown corporation, the bulk of the work will be done in China. Because why not? We're on such great terms these days. We're going to get into all the ups and downs, the ins and outs of a dozen days of campaigning when we score. Our political fix this morning coming up right after the 9:30 news. We're very, very busy between now and noon. Long school board meeting yesterday for the trustees of the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. I heard it went on for something like 7 hours. So you want to be a school board trustee, do you? We will review and distill 7 hours down into about 10 minutes with one of the trustees of the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, Mark Fisher. About 2 weeks to go until the first day of school. They're still putting the finishing touches on the plans for another COVID-19 school year. We'll focus some attention on one of the local races in the West End, Canada-Carleton. That's one to watch on election night federally. It was held by the Liberals at election time. Karen McCrimmon was the Liberal MP. She's not running again. Jenna Sudd's running for the Liberals. City councillor on an unpaid leave of absence right now. Provincially, that riding is a PC riding. Dr. Marilee Fullerton, the Ford cabinet minister. But Pat Uguccioni is going to come on the program. He's following all the issues out there, getting to know all the candidates because that's his job. He's the managing editor of the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. And Randall Denley has an excellent column in the Ottawa Citizen about that riding this morning. Randall's on our show tomorrow. Talk about some Ottawa Valley races today. We'll be joined by Bruce McIntyre, the Eganville leader. City Hall is in our sights. Sue Schering, longtime columnist for the Ottawa Sun, writing about city issues. She's on the show today. And as well, there is a protest at City Hall, Marion Dewar Plaza. That's about public transit and our unreliable light rail system. The problems with light rail, the problems with double-decker buses ending up in the ditch, and the refusal of Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson and the chair of the Transit Commission, Alan Hubley, to call an emergency meeting of the Transit Commission to talk about these troubles. The next meeting of the Transit Commission isn't supposed to happen until later next month. I think it's like the month from now, third week of September, sometime like that. Laura Shantz will be on our show with a group called Ottawa Transit Riders, and she will be at that protest today. So it'll be like eyewitness news. It's the Rob Snow Show, and you're in the middle of it all. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we do the talkback hour, an hour of phone calls, an hour of opinions. It's the hottest hour of talk radio in town, ladies and gentlemen. Just ask around. And this morning, I want to get back into this whole issue of private delivery of health care, since that seems to be taking off as an issue here in the second week of the election campaign. And that's fine and dandy by me. Sunshine and lollipops. I'm down with it. Certainly, the Liberals are trying to make the most of that issue. They see it as a massive wedge. They didn't say they were sorry for posting fake news, manipulated media on Twitter, despite the Twitter warning, despite the Twitter smackdown. They didn't apologize for spreading government-sponsored misinformation. They doubled down on it. They doubled down on it, tripled down on it. We had the clip of Trudeau on the bus. Trudeau was talking about this yesterday. Again, not telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but nevertheless, here he is.
So after days of avoiding it, Aaron O'Toole confirmed he wants to bring private, for-profit health care to Canada. He said he supports choice in health care, which means letting the wealthiest pay to jump ahead in line. We believe in strengthening universal public health care for everyone. That's why we're investing in more doctors and nurses, shorter wait times, and better health care. Conservative cuts would take us backwards. Let's keep moving forward for everyone.
For everyone. He's got the breathy voice back, the
for
breathy
everyone.
voice. For everyone. Everyone. But, hey, I don't know how well Mr. O'Toole is really doing at stick handling through this. I think the Conservatives have a good story to tell in this election about health care, but I don't think they're making the most of it. But setting all of that aside, what I really want to get into during the talkback hour, I'm just going to ask you a very simple question. We're going to try and fit in as many calls as we can. We're going rapid poll style between 10 and 11 o'clock. On this question, are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of health care in Canada? How would you answer that question? We're going to do a rapid poll style. We're going to keep track of your answers. I want to see which side comes out the winner at the end of the hour. I hope you'll participate here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This hour of the
2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. So I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been Absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's the, been the big democratic sweep of in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is everybody, we went down to 2 employees from 25, and we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. But we'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg, and you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Let's talk about the school board meeting. Happened yesterday. Mark Fisher is here, trustee with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Morning, Mr. Fisher.
Good morning.
Nice to hear from you.
Good morning.
Long day yesterday.
It was.
Yeah. What did you learn from health officials? What was most interesting to you? I know health officials made a presentation to you.
Yeah, well, it's always great to have them participate in our meetings and really get an update, first and foremost, from our city experts when it comes to public health. And I guess there's a couple key messages that we certainly heard from them last night. I think, like the rest of Canada and the United States and other major economies, they're as concerned as others in terms of the Delta variant and the fact that it's more contagious, it can spread more easily. And so they're clearly concerned about that and what that might mean for Ontario and our school system. We heard loud and clear that they still feel that we need to have a layered approach in terms of, how we're protecting homes, how we're protecting our communities, and ultimately our schools, whether that's through, masking and cohorting and social distancing, improved ventilation. All those things need to continue in their view. And I think they were quite clear that they are supportive of anything that we can do as a school board to increase vaccination rates. Whether it's our staff, obviously with our students it gets a bit more complicated, but certainly with our employee base, they were supportive in anything that we can do to increase the vaccination rates amongst our staff. And that's all focused on creating the safest bubble possible, for our schools. We've got, roughly 40,000 students, that's 52% of our school population, that are under 12 and who are not vaccinated. So we've got a significant sort of challenge or duty of care to make sure that we're creating as safe as a learning environment as possible for those students, but also for our employees.
Okay. So what advice did they have for you?
Well, I think in terms of, vaccine mandates, obviously we're seeing, this issue, come forward in a number of different settings. We've seen it with university colleges. We saw the big banks, I think, last week come out with their own mandates. And their view is that they're certainly supportive of vaccine mandates, but it depends on the organizational context, right? And so we're going to have to look at that as a school board and see, what additional directives might be coming from the province. We understand that they are looking at these issues, and more might be coming in the weeks ahead. And then what do we need to do as a school board to perhaps fill in the gaps, when it comes to those protective policies? We certainly heard through, advice from our legal counsel that we have more than enough authority to contemplate a vaccine mandate for our employees, whether it's through the provisions of the Education Act or, for the Occupational Health and Safety Act. It's a question of what can we do, to make our schools as safe as possible. And obviously, we want to see what happens, what other directives might be coming from the province within the next week or so as it relates to this issue.
But the solicitor for the school board told you that he or she, thinks that you're on pretty solid footing there if you wanted to go down the vaccine mandate road.
100%. We looked at both sides of this issue. We looked at it from an Ontario human rights perspective, and obviously the protection of those individual rights. And I think if we were to go down the road of putting in place a vaccine mandate for our employees, obviously we have to make sure that we're also providing accommodations and alternatives for individuals either come forward to say for medical reasons, with a note from a doctor, valid medical reasons I can't get vaccinated, or on religious grounds or what have you. There are certain provisions that we have to make sure that we are being responsive to from a human rights standpoint. And as long as we're taking into account those issues and looking at how we would accommodate those, when they come forward, in the broadest sense, we certainly have enough of a statutory legal authority to look at or to contemplate a vaccine policy for our employees.
Yeah. Then the question becomes, what if somebody refuses?
Correct.
What do you do? Do you accommodate that person? Do you find another job for them? What were you told about that?
Well, we discussed it briefly, okay. But I think there, obviously, the first tier is, for medical religious reasons, we have to look at alternatives and accommodations, and obviously, if we look at the provincial directive that has come out that says, there needs to be proof of vaccination, or there needs to be, sort of medical grounds for not getting vaccinated, or, an employee has to take this education program, still wondering what that's going to be. But if we have an employee who obviously refuses all those things, then there needs to be, I think, a more intense discussion, with that employee about, where they fit within the school system, within the school board, in terms of, in terms of their work and sort of what they can do. I think as an employer, I think we want to try and create as safe as environment as possible within our schools, within our main buildings. And so, obviously it's hard to sort of forecast, the number of employees that might refuse all of those things that they're being asked to do. But, I think from a human resources standpoint, staffing standpoint, if we do have those cases, we have to sit down and have a very real conversation about how they fit within, the values of the school board, but also, where they can continue to work within that context.
Okay. What's been decided and what has yet to be decided on masks, and who will be wearing masks and where they will be wearing masks?
Well, right now, it's a great question, Rob. So right now, the mask mandate is a provincial directive, so we have very little control over what exists right now. Last night we did have some discussion about whether or not that mandate, should be extended to the kindergarten grades. We had that debate last year as well. I think what we heard from Ottawa Public Health is that they would be supportive of sort of mandating masks within those younger years. numbers, but I also know that a lot of parents of kids of that age group are still concerned about the viability of them wearing a mask, throughout a full school day, right? And, obviously, and I think broadly, we certainly understand that, masking coupled with all these other things that students are being asked to do in terms of cohorting and social distancing, that there's an anxiety, there's a level of stress that we've seen throughout the pandemic that we didn't see before the pandemic. And, so I think anytime that we are, debating and discussing mask mandates and these other things, we have to take in the broader well-being of our students. And I think that's particularly true for our youngest learners. And so I think we haven't made a firm decision about which way to go, but we are listening and seeing whether or not it needs to be applied to that to those younger years, and especially in the context of Delta, which we know is potentially more contagious and more dangerous.
Okay. I'm old enough to remember, Mr. Fisher, getting vaccinated at school.
Yeah, me too.
You are? Okay. Has there been any talk about that? I mean, I know for 12 plus, the vaccination rates are really good anyway, but has there been any talk about bringing clinics into schools?
Well, it's a great question. So as part of the back-to-school planning that the province announced a week or so ago, they did talk about bringing clinics closer to schools in order to create more opportunities for students to get vaccinated. We still need to work with Ottawa Public Health to understand what that might look like. And I think that that's a real opportunity in terms of making sure that we're vaccinating as many people as possible and educating our students about vaccines as well. In Ontario, there isn't a particular age of consent like there is in other provinces in terms of making decisions about your own health. Not to say that we want our students showing up and making that decision on their own without discussing it with their parents, but I think there is an opportunity to use these clinics to get those vaccination rates up for 12 to 18 to even higher levels, in the city. And I think the specifics will come hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But to your other point, there is a history of vaccinating kids in schools. In fact, my son, when he was in grade 7, grade 8, there was a vaccination campaign for those regular vaccines that we have to take as students, under the Immunizing School Pupils Act in Ontario. And so we still vaccinate kids in schools, for a suite of different issues, viruses and diseases. And I know that the province is looking at adding COVID-19 to the Immunization of Student Pupils Act, and whether or not that will happen in the next couple of weeks. But I know that the province is considering adding COVID-19 to the list of things that need to be vaccinated.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
Mark Fisher is a trustee with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. The news is next on City News.
This hour. And the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, we are under a heat warning, and in Ottawa and Smiths Falls right now, 24 degrees. It feels like 31. Here's what's making news this hour. Three main party leaders in BC and Ontario today in this day 10 of the election campaign. Both the Conservatives' Erin O'Toole and the NDP's Jagmeet Singh are in southwestern Ontario. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is in BC today. As Canada vows to remain in Afghanistan for as long as possible in order to get people out who do want to leave, Poland has become the latest to withdraw its airlift operation. Yesterday, there was one Canadian airlift that took some 500 people out of Kabul. Just before 7 o'clock this morning, Ottawa Fire Service called to the Aviation Parkway at Eganville Road. A two-vehicle collision left one person there trapped. As one firefighter offered patient care, another extricated the person from that vehicle. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. And joining us today, Geoff Turner, Vice President, Bluesky Strategy Group. Good morning, Geoff.
Hey, Rob.
And Jason Lietaer is President, Enterprise Canada. Good morning, Jason.
Morning, Rob.
Everybody's enjoying the election?
More fun for some than others.
I suppose so. It's about a dozen days old. Let's begin with you, Jason. What are your overall impressions of the campaign thus far?
Well, it's so O'Toole stronger than expected, I think, for most Canadians. Trudeau is scattered and weird, as I've seen him. I've never seen him look like I've seen him look over the last little bit. Singh about as expected. And I really do mean it when I say, like, you know, Mr. Trudeau, I really respect the way he's been able to campaign. They ran a perfect campaign in 2015. In 2019, they had a really, really difficult, spell in the middle of that campaign. He looked pretty ashen and was super tough at the end of that campaign. And he just looks manic and weird over the first bit of this campaign. And I think they're surprised how well O'Toole is doing. So, I mean, we got a race. That's the bottom line.
We got a race. We sure do. Geoff, what do you think of the campaign in general terms so far, before we get into some specifics here?
For sure. I think for our listeners here, it's been a lot like the weather in Ottawa, kind of hot and sticky, and we're all moving a little slower than we expected as a result. And so it has been a kind of weird first couple of weeks. I think we're really waiting for September when people come off of their summer breaks, when school year starts to come back and families get more into their routine. I think we'll see a pickup as we cross Labor Day. But, sort of consistent with that summer heat issue, I think you're also seeing, as Jason mentioned, different strategies. I mean, the Prime Minister has been out hustling, crossing the country coast to coast almost every day. Erin O'Toole's been in the air conditioning of his hotel ballroom doing controlled presentations to controlled groups and staying out of the real world where there are real things that can catch you or crowds that can boo you or other things. And I think it just goes to show that they've launched, as Jason said, on a very measured, very controlled foot. They've done good by that. It's served them well. And I think the Prime Minister has been out showing what he does, which is campaigning with people and in communities and spreading his word from coast to coast as he does.
Okay. The polls. Let's talk about the polls. At the beginning of August, I looked this up this morning. Head-to-head matchup: Liberal Conservative Party of Canada. Liberal v. Conservative. Beginning of August. Abacus, Liberals ahead by 12. Lietaer, Liberals ahead by 7. Main Street, Liberals ahead by 6. Nanos, Liberals ahead by 5. This is how those same polls look today. Abacus had David Coletto on yesterday. Liberals ahead by 4. Lietaer, Liberals ahead by 2. Main Street, Liberals behind by 2. Nanos, Liberals ahead by 1. Jason, how would you explain the shift in the polls?
Yeah, so a lot of people parked their votes over the pandemic, especially. And the Prime Minister, he got, I would say, a good solid B from a lot of Canadians on how he handled the pandemic, and I think a lot of people parked their votes. They were forced to get a choice. And by the way, I've said this a couple of times on your show, Rob, but the Prime Minister got 33% in the last campaign, right? And sort of, it's what's weird is, what are the plus or minuses whenever we're in an election campaign now? He's at about 32, 33% again.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Like, he's sort of at that point where, if you've made up your mind on Justin Trudeau, you've probably made up your mind on Justin Trudeau. Like, do I like this guy? And a lot of people asked us last time for a better option. They said, I'm a little upset with Mr. Trudeau, but you guys aren't really giving me a great option. So, I mean, the difficulty for the Liberals, and I think what terrifies the Liberals, is they do have a better option this time. O'Toole is immeasurably better than she was last time, and I think there is a little bit. And just one final point. Trudeau is wearing a little bit of, why are we having an election? It's funny, I had a barbecue the other day for my kids' baseball team, sort of after the season, and a couple of the moms were like, they were mad. Like, and I'm not sort of making that up. They were mad. They were saying, why an election in the middle of a fourth wave? I was surprised to hear it, to be honest with you. And I'm just getting a little bit of fatigue with Mr. Trudeau. So I think, they parked their votes there between elections, and just as you call an election, a choice is forced on you. You sort of just, right back to sort of that mean that Trudeau's been at for a number of years now and during elections.
Okay. How do you explain the shift in the polls, Geoff Turner?
Yeah, and I think you can see, the numbers that you listed out, Rob, they were quite wide apart, as your listeners probably noted, but they did definitely shift. I think every election starts with a narrowing and a tightening of the polls. As Jason said, people's answers when it's a theoretical can be different when it's on, when they're responding to a phone call or clicking a button on their online survey. And again, I think, as I said earlier, we're still kind of in August. I think when people return to September and their kind of their more routine lives, I think we'll see that start to sharpen up. I would just say from a ground game perspective for Liberals, sky high polls are not good for Liberals because what it means is people feel comfortable not going out and voting if they don't feel like there's a need to, if they feel like the support's already there. Okay. You can see the NDP gain traction if the Liberals are polling low. Or polling high, rather. People feel like they can go and, vote for whatever they feel like, with options that may not make the most sense, from a real world perspective. But I think what we'll see is that those polls will move all over the place. It's a volatile period during election, just normally, but just given our global context right now, I think people are very volatile, to Jason's point. And I think what we'll start to see is the narrative sharpen up as we get into that. Those last couple of weeks, and I think we'll start to see the choices go from there. But I think it's going to be tight polling throughout this entire campaign. Right,
and still the debates to go yet, right? So that's going to be a big moment.
It will
for
absolutely
everyone.
be a big
moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into this whole Twitter business. Two-tier O'Toole, hashtag two-tier O'Toole. It's out there now. So we're going to play some tape here from the campaign. Do we have Chrystia Freeland ready to go? The Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Toronto area Liberal candidate, Minister of Everything in the Trudeau government. This is Chrystia Freeland.
Thinking about that, do you think the Conservatives would have provided the support to individuals and to businesses that we did? Do you think they would have bought the vaccines that we did? No. I don't think so. And so it really, really matters. And it matters for the future. We put out, I think we put this out already. If not, you guys are going to get the scoop on the rest of the country. But we tweeted out some video of Erin O'Toole during the Conservative leadership campaign where he talks about privatizing Medicare. Can you believe that?
Oh, and the look on her face, like, can you believe that? Like, she is just horrified. Like,
yeah, the audio doesn't really do it justice.
No, it's just like, she's so horrified by it all. Like, Erin O'Toole is like going to take a dialysis machine from my grandmother and give it to the CEO of an oil company. Like, that's how evil he is, just unbelievable stuff. So look, they hammered away on that until Twitter labeled it manipulative media. They're manipulating the media, which is basically a $10 word for fake news. Okay, it's fake news. It's fake news. But they didn't back down. They doubled down and then they tripled down. We played the Trudeau clip already, but Erin O'Toole, this was his statement yesterday from the O'Toole bunker at the Westin Hotel. Roll tape on that, Dave.
I would like to make a statement with respect to the Prime Minister's ongoing misleading campaign on healthcare and his attacks on provinces. A Prime Minister who was serious about health care wouldn't have called an election during a national health emergency. And now, unbelievably, he's threatening to cut health care funding and close health clinics in the middle of a pandemic. I knew Justin Trudeau was desperate to win his majority, but I never believed he would compromise people's health to get it.
Okay. Jason, who is winning this debate on health care?
Well, the Liberals are pretty desperate, right? They can read I understand Geoff's point about people are going to tune in after Labor Day. That's the hope of the Liberal campaign, but they can read the tread lines, and they're pretty desperate about, sort of throwing everything at the wall. So desperate that the manipulated media, Twitter, like flagging you as fake news is pretty bad news, right? She is the finance minister of the country, right? Like it's a pretty big deal. Like I don't remember seeing anybody else other than Trump get that label from a social media.
Former journalist.
Yeah, she's written books. She's an author. The Liberals like the fact that this debate is out there because I think it really seems to be like all they've got. So it's a dishonest debate. I mean, let's be frank with each other, right? Like the Shouldice Clinic is right near Christian Freeland's riding. It's the foremost hernia operation sort of purveyor in Canada. It's everybody goes there. It's a private clinic. There's private clinics everywhere, and X-ray, diagnostics, long-term care, home care, all these kinds of things. It's all exploded under Mr. Trudeau's watch. So it's a phony debate. Liberals, it might be, if that's the only thing that the Liberals got, my goodness, they better go back to the drawing board because when even Twitter says your attack is fake news, I don't know how you can base your campaign on that.
Okay, before we hear from Geoff, again, they're not apologizing for it, though. As I said, they're doubling down, tripling down, and again, let's play the Trudeau clip, the latest Trudeau clip on this, okay? Like, big revelation here. Go ahead.
So after days of avoiding it, Aaron O'Toole confirmed he wants to bring private, for-profit health care to Canada. He said he supports choice in health care, which means letting the wealthiest pay to jump ahead in line. We believe in strengthening universal public health care for everyone. That's why we're investing in more doctors and nurses, shorter wait times, and better health care. Conservative cuts would take us backwards. Let's keep moving forward. For everyone.
For everyone. There you go. Speaking moistly again. Justin Trudeau. But nevertheless, Aaron O'Toole is trying to explain. And if you're explaining, you're losing. He's explaining. This is where I stand. This is what I mean. So what do you think? Who's winning this debate? Geoff Turner.
Well, let me see. On the Twitter piece, I mean, it obviously is not something I think the Liberals were expecting to happen, and it certainly knocked them off of their stride. And I think if they could do it over again, for the sake of adding the second reference to universal coverage in that from Mr. O'Toole rather than from the moderator, would have changed that dynamic. But it doesn't change Mr. O'Toole's message, as we've just been talking about. His message is opening up more private options inside of our healthcare system. But I want to back up just a second. What does a federal leader control? They don't control health policy. They don't control hospitals or doctors. What they control is the Canada Health Act and money. And money is how you buy commitments from the provinces. But the Canada Health Act is how you preserve our public Medicare system. And so what Mr. O'Toole is proposing is not to do anything himself. It's much like other debates where, there's this legislation overhang on what they may or may not do. The Canada Health Act, he will amend to allow premiers to do what they want in the private space. And so it's not about what Aaron O'Toole wants to do. It's about what Jason Kenney or Doug Ford or Francois Legault or others want to do in the privatized world. That's what he wants to enable. And I think it's not a mystery to any of your listeners or people out there that there is private delivery in our healthcare system now. That has happened over generations at the hands of provincial authorities. But, that's linens, food, yes, blood work, yes, medical imaging, but it's not your surgery. It's not your hospital. This Shouldice Hospital, as Jason mentioned, is a lone example in Canada. And it's one that came out when an earlier government was trying to privatize use of the healthcare system. So I think there's a real reticence in Canadians to...
Yeah, but as I understand, though, with Shouldice, if I could just interrupt, I'm sorry to interrupt. You pay with your OHIP card at Shouldice, do you not?
It is, but that's the fundamental difference, though, is we're still talking about creating a parallel system where everybody can show up with their OHIP card, but people with money can show up with their credit card and get ahead of that line. And what that does is it takes doctors out of the system. It takes nurses out of the system. It makes supplies cost more because there's more competition from private labs who will pay more. It simply drains our public resources by adding a second layer of private access.
It's going on everywhere in Canada right now, so let's have an honest debate about it. Why doesn't he stop it?
We should be having an honest debate about it, but we're talking about Twitter handles, not about debate. And I think that's where Mr. O'Toole's been backpedaling for a day and a half since this has been on the radar.
Okay, I just find it interesting that maybe this whole, Twitter labels you fake news has not been as damaging as maybe some people thought it would, because they seem to have embraced it, if anything. But look,
well, they've only got one play left, Rob, right? Okay. Like they really do only have that play left. And I actually generally agree with the analysis, by the way. They want this debate. They're happy with this debate. It's okay to have this debate. They got a little bit more eyes on it. I will say the long term, though, the Prime Minister's brand, sunny ways, I'm the nice guy, I change politics, for young people who voted for Mr. Trudeau, they're seeing a very different Mr. Trudeau in this campaign, and I don't think it's going to be the Mr. Trudeau that a lot of them vote for, and I think they're going to drive a lot of people over to Mr. Singh.
All right, well, that's a nice segue for us. We'll have to stop here, but Mr. Singh, nice guy, but do nice guys finish third? When we come back, Rob Snow Show, City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So again, we're back. Part 2, Your Political Fix with Jason Lietaer, Enterprise Canada. And Geoff Turner from Bluesky Strategy. We're talking about the election, of course. Nice Guys finished third. According to the latest polls, NDP support ranges anywhere, according to polls out this week, between 19% and 22% nationally. So it's in their higher range. Geoff, how could this level of support impact the final results of the election campaign?
As you point out, Rob, 15% to 25% is the kind of natural home zone for the NDP. Mr. Singh, of course, has more experience this time around. I think you can see he's more confident, more comfortable on the hustings, and they have a very good operation in terms of showcasing the leader. I don't think they showcase much else, and that's normal in a federal election, of course. As they rise, of course, it draws people out of mostly the Liberal fold. I think you can see Mr. O'Toole trying to make a play for some union voters and others. I don't know how successful that will be. I think it might capture voters in the union movement who are already voting Conservative, as opposed to those who are sort of more tried and true on the Labour end of the spectrum. But certainly, I think it's a little easy. It's an easy job for the NDP, right? Because they get to talk about what they would do if they were the government, with everyone knowing full well that they probably won't be the government. And then secondly, we see a consistent pattern with Mr. Singh that he basically promises everybody everything, and with few details, certainly no costing, certainly no money, and often, and we were just talking about this, things that are very directly in the provincial realm. And a lot of those promises often just assume that the provinces will just say, right on, let's get it done. And that's not how our country works. So I think, there's easy momentum to be gained by making a lot of promises, not being too worried about details, inspiring people with those promises. And I think it's the hard work that ends up having to happen in government that often makes people more disillusioned when it actually takes work to get things through our politics to be, to make real impacts out on the ground. So I think the NDP have that kind of advantage, but it's eventually a disadvantage if people start to understand that they're promising things they can't deliver.
Okay. What do you think, Jason?
I agree with almost every word Geoff said there. Okay. And Mr. Singh is his biggest advantage is that he's super sort of approachable. He speaks comfortably. I think on day one of the campaign, I thought he was the most comfortable in his own skin. I think Mr. O'Toole has got there over the last week or two. I think Mr. Trudeau still is trying to find his stride in this one and find the right tone. But Mr. Singh is a huge liability for Mr. Trudeau because, number one, he's younger than Mr. Trudeau. Number two, he's sort of taking up that space that Mr. Trudeau used to take up, which is fresh and young and positive and fun, and he's in that spot where, listen, the NDP if they get up to the high end of that range, it gets very difficult for the Liberals to win this election. And so you're talking about an existential threat right now for the Liberals, and you're seeing Mr. Trudeau sort of tack left and try and crowd out that space. This is the fight to watch, and especially just one last point, BC. Some areas of downtown Toronto and sort of southwestern Ontario, just a couple of pockets around London. There's areas of the country.
Maybe Halifax. Maybe Halifax.
There's areas of the country, some in St. John's. There's areas of the country whether the NDP does well and Mr. Singh does well, it's an existential threat to that sort of it. It makes it a three-way race.
But what about BC? I'm sorry. If I could just jump in, I'd like both of you to comment on this. Because you're both anticipating, say, some coalescing of the vote, say, in the final few weeks when people firm up their decision on this classic kind of pitch that, look, if you want to stop the Conservatives, if you really want a progressive government, we know the NDP's not going to win, so you have to vote for the Liberals to stop the Conservatives. Is that going to be as effective this time, Geoff? What do you think, Geoff?
I think that's a decision that's made for people personally, and as I sort of said earlier, people listen. When I am out helping on a campaign, over time, one of the things that people stop you in the street, they say, "Who's going to win?" People want to know who's going to win. That's often the first question they ask you. Yeah. And so I think as people see numbers grow, they get on board. I think for Mr. Singh, the hard answer that he's going to eventually have to come to grips with is, what is your role in a Conservative minority government? Will you hold it up? He's been doing his very best to avoid that question now. Yeah. If they get stronger and that scenario you're laying out, Rob, becomes more plausible, voters will need to understand what happens on the other side before they can feel comfortable putting Mr. Singh into a higher position in the vote tally.
What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, the NDP has to figure out whether or not it's a serious party or not, right? They were a serious party in 2011 under Jack Layton, and they destroyed Michael Ignatieff. And the question is, to Geoff's point, it actually is a legitimate question for them and their supporters. And I think Mr. Singh's picked a lane on this. If you want to be, have some political oxygen, you actually have to crowd out the Liberals. That's your real sort of political opponent. And they have to figure out whether or not Mr. Singh is serious about that. So we're going to see how serious he is in the last 2 weeks of this campaign. Mr. Layton went for the jugular in that debate against Mr. Ignatieff. He got it. We're going to see if Mr. Singh's got the same stuff.
All right. I've already said to my listeners, Ottawa West Nepean is my bellwether riding. That's the one I'm watching, okay, for a bellwether. Geoff, what is a bellwether riding you're going to be watching on election night that might indicate what way this is going here?
Yeah, I have to stick with Ottawa Centre. It's my political home. My good friend, mentor, and former boss, Yasser Naqvi, really pleased that he stepped up to take on the race once Catherine McKenna stepped aside. He's doing very well, but Ottawa Centre often is criticized as a Liberal bastion, but that's actually very far from the truth. The NDP and the Liberals fight very hard over this riding every time, both on the ground and in the air. It's a very plugged-in, very attentive community. It's got quite a lot of, it's got one of the highest voter turnouts in the country, and so campaigning matters here, and that is a race that will, I think, genuinely reflect the dynamic we're talking about. That
NDP provincially, and Paul Dewar had it before Catherine McKenna. So yeah, it's a good one to watch. Good pick. I love the local pick. Jason Lietaer.
I live in Burlington. If Burlington goes conservative, most of the 905 goes conservative. The bellwether riding, to your point, is you can pretty much reliably count on the fact that if that riding goes, the rest of it goes. Peterborough is the bellwether riding traditionally in Canada. It's whatever Peterborough votes, that's what the rest of Canada actually votes. And I'll be looking at BC as well, places like Port Coquitlam, the sort of the greater Vancouver area, where those races might decide it if it gets close late in the night on election night.
Okay. You're the second person to pick Peterborough, first of all. And I believe Bill Davis used to say, so goes Burlington, so goes Ontario. So,
bingo.
There you go. Okay. Thanks to both of you. Enjoy it.
Thanks, Rob.
Enjoy it. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. That is your political fix. Geoff Turner is Vice President of Bluesky Strategy Group, and Jason Lietaer is the President of Enterprise Canada. I'm Rob Snow, and the Talkback Hour is coming up next, and we're going to do a rapid poll on health care and more privatization of healthcare. I want to know where you stand at 750-1310 here on City News.
CKNW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now under this heat warning, feeling around 30 in Ottawa, 24 degrees, 23 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's day 11 of the federal election campaign. Party leaders placing their focus in Ontario and BC. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with more.
Kicking off media events today on the campaign trail is Green Party leader Anna May Paul, who's in Toronto and kicked off our leader interviews with Breakfast Television, making her pitch for a green recovery after the pandemic.
I want to join the United States and the European Union in planning a recovery that is based around renewable energy, that is based around building the infrastructure we're going to need to get down to zero emissions.
Next up is NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who's in Windsor meeting with the mayor of the city and making an announcement before greeting voters in one of the local ridings. Afterwards, we have Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, who's in Hamilton for an announcement, followed by an evening rally with supporters. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau hitting up Surrey, BC, where he's expected to make an announcement and speak with a young family about the issue of housing. Most recent polls show the Liberals and Conservatives are neck and neck in this political race. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News time at 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, heads up for showers and thunderstorms today, mainly for the afternoon into the evening. The high 32 degrees will feel like 38 with the humidity 21 for the low. More scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning, then becoming partly cloudy. The high, though, still quite warm, 31. For today, the high 32.
And right now under that heat warning, it feels around 30, 24 degrees in Ottawa, 23 in Smiths Falls. Delta variant-fueled infections rising across the country. That has some provinces reintroducing mandatory face coverings and vaccine requirements. Here's a look at the national COVID picture.
Quebec elementary and high school students across 9 regions, including Montreal, will have to wear masks indoors when classes resume. Manitoba, meantime, is bringing back a mask mandate for all indoor public spaces, including schools, while all frontline provincial employees who will work with vulnerable populations will need to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by the end of October. And starting today, BC is bringing back masks in all indoor public spaces, such as malls, grocery stores, and on transit. Rob Westgate, The Canadian Press.
City News time at 10:03. Just before 7 this morning, Ottawa Fire Service called to the Aviation Parkway at Eganville Road. A 2-vehicle collision left one person trapped. As one firefighter offered patient care, another extricated that person from the vehicle. Took about a quarter of an hour to do that, cutting the roof off the vehicle and getting the person out. That person was transferred to the care of paramedics. At 11 o'clock this morning, councillors who were pushing for an emergency transit commission meeting will be at Marion Dewar Plaza at Ottawa City Hall. They're inviting anyone who has questions for either the bus service or rail service troubles over the last couple of weeks to air them in a public forum. The councillors thought the fact a double-decker steered off Carling into a ditch and an LRT car lost one of its axles off the rails should be addressed at an emergency meeting. Both Mayor Jim Watson and the Transit Commission Chair rejected the call. The Mayor and Alan Hubley say the next transit meeting on September 20th, along with regular updates from OC Transpo officials, are enough to address the problems. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare in Canada? It's the one and only question that I have for you this hour of the program, okay? Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare in Canada? What we're doing here is a rapid poll, okay? Rapid poll style, old school call-in radio. We're keeping track of your answers. I've got my scorecard here, okay? David's got a scorecard over here, and we'll see which side comes out the winner at the end of the hour. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare in Canada? It has really taken off as the issue of the election campaign here in the second week. 11 days now into this federal election campaign. Only 26 days to go until the 20th of September, an election day, and all of this might be over, and then new drama gets to begin. And this is the issue that has seized the week, healthcare, and I think that's a great thing, actually. Just how each of these parties would go about fixing healthcare and how serious they are about the issue. If they were ever to be given the chance, on that score, I'm more or less skeptical. But look, this is the single largest expense for any government. It takes more of our tax dollars than anything else, healthcare, and it defines us. And we take great pride in the Canadian healthcare system. And we are in the election campaign. So I think, yeah, go for it. It is most appropriate that we debate this most serious issue. For the Liberals, they obviously thought they scored a gotcha moment when they released that video of O'Toole from the leadership campaign talking about having more private delivery of health care. It backfired to a certain extent because Twitter didn't play nice and labeled it as media manipulation and basically fake news, which is not a good look for a former journalist like Chrystia Freeland to be caught playing fast and loose with the facts. Not good for the Liberals, who want to control what everyone else can post on social media, but they're caught spreading disinformation of their own in a shameless attempt to score political points. But I suppose you could call them a shameless bunch, okay? So they're not apologizing. They're doubling down. They're actually defending it, okay? Which is all fine and dandy, whatever. It's an election campaign. There's love, there's war. And they're out there on Twitter today, and they're calling Aaron O'Toole two-tier O'Toole. Hashtag two-tier O'Toole. It's catchy, okay? I suppose it's catchy. It's catchy. But is it deep? Is it serious? Not really. It's sloganeering. It's bumper sticker stuff. It's not serious stuff. I said last week, I said it again on Monday, O'Toole, you had a good week. Hammering away on the cost of living carried the week. And maybe some of that is reflected in this week's narrowing in the polls. But then I said, now you should really, if you were smart, what would you do, David? What did I say? Pivot to healthcare. You have a story to tell on healthcare about how the Liberals have not committed to increasing their transfers to the provinces for healthcare, despite all the pleading from all the premiers, with Trudeau in one ear, out the other. Meantime, O'Toole, this was my reading of the situation, get out there, talk about how you're willing to double those healthcare transfers, put them at 6% instead of 3%. That's a $60 billion commitment, but they didn't do that. Instead, it's become, it could have been a sword issue for them, right? You use the sword, Instead, it has become a shield issue. So maybe a missed opportunity. Okay, so let's get to the calls here. Again, our rapid poll question of the hour on the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare? You ready? Yeah, let's go. Adam's on the 401. Adam.
Hi, Rob. You're on there again.
Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare?
In favor of it.
Okay. Why is that, sir?
Goodbye.
Okay. We're there. Well, I got you down anyway, Adam, but then we lost you. So let's go to Roger in Drummond. Roger. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Rob.
Roger. Okay. Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare in Canada? Roger.
Well, I'm definitely in favor of more private healthcare in this country, Rob. Paid by your health card. It's going on all over the place. The Shouldice Clinic proves that it's a world-renowned clinic for hernias. And, I look at these things like whether it's hip surgeries and everything that people are waiting sometimes years for. They have these centers of excellence. It's run by private companies. It's paid through your OHIP or whatever province you're in or territory. And it keeps the doctors' skills up. They get more operations done in a 12-hour period than in any hospital setting. And it, to me, on all these hybrid healthcare systems in different countries right now that are very successful, why wouldn't we try it? Because we're losing the battle right now. And you know yourself, Rob, go to a hospital, you know. It's 8, 10, 12 hours, sometimes overnight for something that you need to see them with, but it's called triage, and you're not the most important patient. And that's understandable.
Sure.
So what's wrong with that? Like, you know, Trudeau, he talks about, I won't get too much involved, but he talks about offering $9 billion to the provinces for wait times and hire new doctors and nurses. Oh, where's he going to get them from? The States? Or how many years does it take to be a doctor now, like about 6-week course or what? You know, it's all a bunch of pie in the sky, just a bunch of lies, Rob.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, fair enough. I guess my criticism of that announcement, and look, I'd love to have 8,000 more doctors and nurses tomorrow, whatever they cost, Roger. The problem with that announcement is, okay, why do you have to have an election to do that? Let's say Mr. Trudeau proposed a bill in the House of Commons if our Parliament was sitting and said, we propose spending $6 billion on hiring more nurses and doctors. Is there a political party in the House that would vote against it?
Well, no, the only problem is, Rob,
not, right?
the only problem is, Rob, is that doesn't get him his majority.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay, Roger, thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I understand. Orleans. John, you're on City News. John, are you opposed or in favor of more private delivery of health care?
I'm in favor of more private health delivery.
You are? Okay. And why, sir? Why is that?
Well, I don't think the system we have now is working very well.
Okay.
All we have to do is look at the lineups we have. I don't know of any other country in the world that has lineups like this. And, you did a comparison not last week, I think, of other countries, and we finished right at the bottom, except for the United States.
Well, it wasn't my comparison. It was a story about a study that was done, and we of 11 first world countries, modern, OECD countries with big economies, diversified economies, and we were 10th out of 11 countries. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, a group of orthopedic surgeons in Toronto offered to do hip replacements, knee replacements at a clinic in Toronto, and for $1,000 less. But Dalton McGuinty turned that down. Said no, he didn't want that. I guess it was because they could ration medical services, and keep expenses down that way.
Okay, thank you, John. I know where you stand, sir. Okay, so we're going to move along. We're doing it rapid poll style. Just tell me what way you're leaning on this issue. Give me a brief defense of your position, and then we'll move along to the next caller. And very busy so far, but 750-1310 is our call-in line. When you hear somebody hang up, that's probably your cue to call. Des in Carp, you're on City News. Des, good morning.
Good morning. Definitely in favor.
Definitely in favor.
And I think your second caller, Roger, said everything that I could not have, at my age, think of all the things. We still got our health card. It's going to be paid for. Mm-hmm. Those that got the money, let them go ahead. Our line goes down, and whoever needs a hip, they can get it. For myself, at my age, I've been lucky, but some people aren't. So I say I'm in favor.
You're in favor. Des, Thank you. I appreciate your call. We'll stop here, pick it up on the other side. There's one free line available. Oh, there it's gone. You got to be quick today. We're talking about privatizing healthcare on the Rob Snow Show. City News.
This hour of the Rob Snow Show.
To opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, guests, ladies, what they work for me, I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business, so been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew that we have to wait, and we knew that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food, food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian, so all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches, we focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked, I wanted this love and this food over here, because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box, and do it.
No show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
We're doing a rapid poll on healthcare with this question. Are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of healthcare in Canada? How do you answer that question this morning here? Helen in Arnprior. Helen.
Better.
Hi, Helen.
Definitely pro private healthcare.
Okay.
If we can dirty it, there's obviously a lot of pros and cons to it, but
Sure.
The health system needs to be relieved a little bit. The doctors need to work at getting some surgeries down, just like every other caller is. Then it's also like not getting a different business model, so that there are still doctors that still want to work in the private healthcare system, the public healthcare system, but also have a different avenue where people who can pay for extra services can get that done, and then the hospitals aren't just backlogged like there.
All right, Helen, thank you. I'm going to let you go. There's a lot of road and wind noise there. I look, my own opinion, I just view it like this, okay? We're really up against it with healthcare. We have been for years. It's not some top secret issue. The pandemic has just amplified all the shortcomings of the current system. It's rationed healthcare, staffing shortages, long wait times that just became a lot longer. And I would remind you, the Supreme Court of Canada, in the Shuley case that covers Quebec, in its ruling, Beverly McLaughlin, who was the Chief Justice at the time, wrote that access to a healthcare wait list is not access to healthcare. Okay. Access to a wait list is not the same as accessing health care. The clock is ticking. Okay. The path we are on is unsustainable. 10:20. Let's take another call in our rapid poll. Anne in Nepean, are you in favor or opposed to more privatization of health care?
Yes, and yes.
Yes, and yes. Okay, you can only vote once. Okay, all right. Why, ma'am? Why?
Our son has had like over 40 surgeries, so I'm very familiar with healthcare.
Okay.
Listen, we need private healthcare because we need to liberate some room here. We need We need more in hospital care. We need more time. We need more nurses. We need more doctors. We need more hospitals. We need to bring in a parallel system to help us, or we've been under for the past 2 or 3 decades, and we need to catch up in the worst way. And if we don't, we're going to be drowning, and we're already drowning. We're down for the second count, and if we don't do something soon, we're going to be down for the third.
Okay, I appreciate your call. Ann, in Nepean, Barry in Ottawa. Barry, good morning, Barry.
Yeah, good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Barry. Are you in favor or opposed to more privatization of healthcare in Canada?
I'm in favor of more privatized healthcare. I don't think Trudeau's got a clue. He just wants to spend money for himself and his buddies, and that's why they've been lagging on the ministers getting money out of him. He doesn't seem to want to listen to them at all. And I just think it's a perilous path, Rob, that this pandemic has shown us how little prepared they are. And I just wanted to emphasize that on Lowell's show that I wanted to emphasize on there about it too, and I've done some spinning for Lowell. And that's,
I'll talk to Lowell on Friday. I don't have time to get into that right now, Barry. Jennifer in Ottawa. Jennifer.
Hi.
Are you in favor or opposed to more privatization of healthcare? Is anybody going to stand up for the public healthcare system and break the shutout here? Is it going to be you, Jennifer?
Full disclosure, I'm a physician.
Okay.
So I'm in favor of a blended model with
blended model.
healthcare.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yep.
The European system, Northern European countries do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think of the U.S. when they think of a blended system, but
Sure.
it doesn't have to be like that.
No.
I feel like I can't give the care I would like to give right now.
Okay.
Most physicians are burnt out. I don't know.
You're a family physician, or?
I'm not. I'm a specialist.
Oh, a specialist.
But I think
okay.
it's cross family physicians, specialists. Everybody's really, really burnt out. People would like to give better care, and they just can't in the model we have. I mean, I'm embarrassed about the waits. None of us want that, right?
Well, I heard the wait time right now for, say, for example, the common procedures, knees and hips, 22 months.
Yeah. Embarrassing. I mean, I think physicians would love to get into the operating room if they could get OR time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think.
So, do you think we could do a model? We could do a model. Let's say we have Jennifer and Rob's knee replacements. Okay, and I think we're both, trained, qualified surgeons. We open up a clinic, but people pay with their health card, and we bill the government. Do you think something like that would work? That would be private health care, basically. Do you think that would work?
Yeah, it's probably just because if you could run it like a business.
Yeah.
A little bit leaner. I hate to say it, but not deal with unions. It's a big cost to the hospitals.
Right.
Unionized, and there's a lot of burnout right now, so there's a lot of people off, in fairness. There's a lot of stress leave, there's a lot of illness, there's a lot of people, who have had family members with COVID. So I think if you ran it like a business, I think it would be nice to have the option to have some things right off. It would be nice if people didn't have to operate within the rules of the OR operates from 8 to 4. At 3:30, everybody goes home. Can we operate into the evening?
Closes for 3 weeks in the summer. Yeah.
But the issues are you have to attract doctors. I mean, the problem is we're really short. Like I said, there's a lot of burnout. People have been going all year pretty hard trying to keep things going.
Thing. Yeah. God bless them. And I want to say that any talk about reforming healthcare is not an indictment in any way against the people working in the system. It's about the system, not the people working in it. So,
yeah, absolutely. I don't think people take it that way because I think we all know it's very broken. Like, again, I think we feel just as bad about how things are going, and people are working tons trying to, cut wait times and do what they can, and I think that is why there's a lot of burnout, because people are trying to do their best to function within it, and people go into medicine because they care for people, and it's hard to not be able to care for people the way you want to.
Yeah, and see people suffer and wait, and Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for your call. Yeah, very good call. Okay. Holy smokes, 8 zip out of the gate here. Where are all the left-wing listeners? Keith, Shawville. Keith.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, buddy.
Okay, I want to give you, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to give you a couple of examples, like the Shouldice Clinic north of Toronto there.
Yeah.
Did you want a hernia done? That's a private clinic.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And there's Otto Gastrointestinal Clinic on Saint Laurent. I've had 2 colonoscopies done.
Right.
It's all covered by OHIP.
Yeah.
A good example.
Yeah.
And the third one is the Ottawa Valley, and there's Ottawa Gatineau in Hull, Quebec. There's an MRI imaging place.
Well, I know there used to be. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. Is it still there? I know it used to be there. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
I don't know if it's still there, but I mean, they allowed that in Quebec and Trudeau.
Oh, yeah, it's flourishing. It's flourishing in Quebec. This is the great hypocrisy of the Trudeau position. It's flourishing in Quebec, but he promises, because he knows he's not going to win a single seat in Saskatchewan, that he'll claw back money from Saskatchewan, right?
That's just the point I wanted to make. Why didn't journalists query him on that? Why are you allowing him?
Oh, they did yesterday. They did. Marika Walsh asked him consistently about that yesterday, I believe.
Anyway, that's the points I wanted to make.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Keith. Yep. 9-0. Holy smokes. Helen Westboro. Helen in Westboro.
Yes, I'm alive.
Holy cow, there's a blast from the past. I hope you're well these days.
Well, I haven't been, and that's one reason.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you get well. I hope you get well.
I am getting well, but
good for you.
I'm a vote for yes.
Yes, okay.
I think a hybrid procedure or process would be the best thing. Using your OHIP card or health card, that's excellent. We can already do MRIs. We had private clinics helping with vaccination and testing and everything else. We need to do that. And Trudeau's promise of bringing in so many doctors, I wonder if that's going to happen before he brings water to the Indian reservations.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear your voice. I'm really happy to hear your voice. I really am. Long-time caller to the Rob Snow Show is Helen in Westboro. And her sister is Dolores in the market. And their brother was a guy named Ray Friel. Like the Ray Friel Center in Ottawa. Yeah. It's small world in talk radio. You build a relationship with your callers. And we'll do more of that after the 10:30 news on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, feeling in the mid-30s. It's 26 degrees in Ottawa, 25 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. We have the latest COVID numbers in Ontario this morning, showing an additional 660 cases and one more death. Of these new cases, Ottawa has 29. There are 2 in Eastern Ontario's health unit, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and no new cases today in Renfrew County. The positivity rate is 2.4% from just over 26,000 tests that were completed. A Canadian military aircraft with more than 500 aboard flew out of Kabul on Wednesday. It was one of a stream of military planes that took off as evacuees lined up on the tarmac. One person had to be cut from a vehicle after a collision this morning at Ogilvie and Aviation Parkway. Firefighters needed just under 20 minutes to cut the roof off a vehicle, free the person, and put that person into the care of Ottawa paramedics. In about a half an hour, city councillors who called for a public meeting on transit issues will hold a public forum at Marion Dewar Plaza at City Hall. Both the Transit Commission chair and mayor said a meeting over axle issues and steering on one double-decker not needed. A regular transit meeting is under a month away, and regular updates on those 2 issues have been provided. City News Time 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
So it was 10-0 at halftime. 10-0. On this question of the morning, and we're doing it rapid poll style, are you opposed or are you in favor of more private delivery of health care in Canada? We're doing a rapid poll style. Look, I've been covering this issue for a long time. A lot longer than the last 11 days, believe you me. I remember the Drummond report here in Ontario. Came out almost a decade ago now. Don Drummond, revered economist. Dalton McGuinty hired him to do a report. Don, how are we going to save healthcare in Ontario? Don Drummond does this report, comes up with hundreds of recommendations. Dalton McGuinty ignored every single one of them. But Don Drummond said in 2012, if we don't innovate in the Ontario healthcare system, if we don't change delivery models in the Ontario healthcare system, healthcare, and only healthcare, will consume 80% of Ontario's budget by the year 2030. That was in 2012. 80% of the budget. Now, obviously, you can't have one program taking 80% of the budget. How do you run a school system? Okay? Let alone everything else that a provincial government is expected to cover. But Ontario's not unique. In Newfoundland and Labrador, they just had a similar report called the Green Report. Dame Moya Green. She used to run the postal system in the UK, used to run the Mint here in Canada. She's asked by Premier Fury, how do we save Newfoundland from going insolvent, from falling off the fiscal cliff because of crushing debt and spiraling out of control healthcare costs? What was her advice? Sell everything the government can sell. From the liquor stores on down, sell it all. Raise every tax that currently exists and try to find new ways to raise taxes. Create brand new taxes, and you have to cut government spending or go broke. One report from one expert in 2012, one report less than a year old. Not much has changed in a decade. Back to the phones. Here we go, second half. Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show. Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. You're on City News.
Good morning. I'm in favor for privatization.
Okay.
If the government can't do it, you got to let the private sector do it. Just for example, they close hospitals, like even here in Ottawa, they closed the Riverside Hospital, which is a very good hospital. They closed that, make it some kind of in and out thing. Toronto, they've done the same thing. And it just goes to show you what they do. They bring in 400, they want to bring in 400,000 into the country, but yet they don't realize you bring in 400,000, you're putting 400,000 onto the healthcare, but no, we won't hire any doctors or nurses. We'll just load it onto them and let them deal with it. And then the crisis starts, that the lineups start all over. It's the same with the highways. They have this. I mean, this is pathetic. I tell people I live in Ottawa, and they go, "Oh, that's a city with one road." I said, "Yeah, that's right, one road, a country road in and out of the city," and that's sad. It's just what they do to healthcare. They just put it, lift up the carpet, throw it underneath, and hopefully the next government will deal with it.
All right, thank you, Geoff, for sharing your opinion, sir. Joanne in Orleans. Joanne in Orleans, are you in favor or opposed to more private delivery of health care?
I am in favor,
Okay.
and I have caveats.
All right.
I don't think it boils down to money, and I don't think it boils down to delivery models. I think we need innovation. I think we need private delivery, but it's only part of the solution. We need stricter control of OHIP. We need more human resources in every sector of healthcare. X-ray, labs, MRI, CT, people trained to operate and read those, what do you call them, tests? I think we need better use of registered nurse practitioners, more scope for them. And I think COVID has advanced some creativity. I know my doctor's office is superb now as far as delivery of and screening for appointments. But if it's just pure cash, it's going to go into the same sinkhole. We desperately need innovation along with this private use. The idea of private delivery is not alone and innovative enough. And I also think we need to address the fact that if private clinic physicians and nurses go to private clinics, they get less subsidies for their medical education. If they stay in the public system, then they continue to get very healthy subsidization for their education.
All right. Thank you, Joanne. Joanne in Orleans. Okay. Let's keep it rolling here. Jeff in Ottawa. Jeff,
Good
you're
morning,
on
Rob. Yes, most definitely. I would. It should have come in years ago, many years ago.
Okay.
Can I just throw in a few seconds here? I think people should. I'd like to thank Freeland. I'd like to throw her a bouquet for confirming that the Liberals are all come from the same mold. You look at the SNC lab, the lies. You look at the We Charity, the lies. The water reserves. Fiascos, lies. You just look at that Carolyn Bennett, the text she sent to Jody Wilson. This just show you how they're all from the same mold, and they will all lie to collect their little check, which is quite large. But they're not out for you. They're out for themselves, and that's why this election.
They didn't come back for you. All right, Jeff. Gotcha, Jeff. Thank you. Yep. We have two lines available. First time this morning. Very hot issue, and it's 13-0. Nobody's really in love with the current Canadian healthcare system or the Ontario healthcare system or the Quebec healthcare system or the Nova Scotia healthcare system. I mean, it's not like we have one system, right? Every provincial government has its own system, which is the point Mr. O'Toole's trying to make. Marie in Orleans. Marie, you're on City News.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you going to break my shutout here? It's a shutout so far.
No, I'm bringing it on. I'm bringing it 14-0.
We need a mercy rule. We're going to need a mercy rule.
That's right. No, I have to say I was a paramedic over 20 years ago, and people are always concerned that the rich and the wealthy get better service if we have a two-tiered system. I'm just going to let everybody and all your listeners know who are listening, the wealthy and the connected are already not waiting in the same lineups that you and I are waiting in.
Yeah.
So this is something that a lot of people don't understand is if we get all these rich people off my waiting list, then I don't have to wait a year for an MRI. If we get people who can actually afford to be part of a private system that doesn't take OHIP, that'll just, you pay them and they will treat you, they are off the public system. And what a lot of people don't understand is our current system is take what the government gives you. And by definition, that is communist. And I don't want to sound like a crazy person or anything like that, but the fact that I don't have a choice in where I get my treatment or how quickly I can get my treatment based on my income, that right there is putting me in the same envelope as everybody else, and we all have to wait. And that to me is communism, and that's not free market, in my opinion. Now, when I was a paramedic and I had a judge over 20 years ago, wife, call an ambulance because she had period cramps, any other person would have had a non-essential signature on the back of that ambulance form, and they would have got a $440 bill in the mail because that call was non-essential. But as soon as the ER doctor found out that was Judge so-and-so's wife, she didn't sign the back. Now, if anyone could have afforded to drive themselves to the hospital or take a taxi, it was a judge in the 90s. So I really hope that people can stop with this Americanization of this two-tier and think of it more as like a gelled, advanced version of the American and the Canadian. You'll still have your free services, but I should be able to go buy an MRI tomorrow if I can afford it and my knee's messed up. But I can only do that right now in Quebec and Alberta. So that doesn't seem right to me. That seems a little communist. So for me, anyone who's worried about rich and connected getting ahead of us in line, sorry, they've been ahead of us in line for the last 25 years already.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Great call. Great call. Lynn, Elmer. Lynn, good morning, Lynn.
Yes, hello.
Are you in favor or opposed to more privatization of healthcare in Canada?
I am opposed.
You're opposed. Oh my gosh, I almost want to ring a bell for you. You're the only one so far who's called me.
Only one reason.
Yeah, okay.
And it's because of the crisis of the medical staff issue. And I honestly feel that if private comes in, it will just deplete our already depleted resources as far as staff goes.
Yeah.
And this has been an ongoing tsunami of retiring doctors that our government has known about and has really never put enough attention into, and to me, which has caused a lot of these problems we're having. So I think before we get into the two-tier system, which to me probably is more sustainable, we'll have to address this issue of medical staff and making sure that we have the proper amount of people to look after us.
All right. Thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Thank you. Lynn breaks the shutout. Lynn breaks the shutout. Holy cow. 14-1. Maybe it's the start of a comeback. Murray in Kemptville. Murray.
Morning, Rob.
Yes, Murray.
Fully support a modified system.
Okay, modified. Okay.
Your callers to this point have all hit big things, particularly two ladies in particular, the paramedic and, pardon me, the other one, the doctor as well. My own personal experience. This time last year, I was waiting for cancer surgery. No OR time. No availability. I got the surgery, fortunately. It was on time, blah, 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 blah. Everything's fine, although I distinctly possible I'll be going in for another surgery. But anyway, reduce the lineups for regular patients, or as we know right now. If I had access to something, pick a number, pick a place, Toronto last year, I would have been gone like a shot. No availability. It used to be the Shouldice Clinic who took care of hernias.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, still does, yeah.
They took a whole lot of workload out of regular surgeries in local hospitals or LHINs. Same thing applies to all the rest of it. So, short version, fully support modification to the system.
Okay, thank you, Murray. Thank you. All the best, sir. Yeah, good to hear your voice. There's another blast from the past right there, a long-time listener, long-time caller to the show. Glad to hear he's doing better. 10:45, Talk Back Hour, final quarter coming up next. Rob Snow Show on City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work, it's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Talking about increased private delivery of healthcare in Canada, whether you're opposed or in favor of that. Given the calls so far, I predict a massive, Mulrooney-like majority government for the Conservative Party is 15-1. It's 15-1 so far. I don't know. When we talk about the universal delivery of healthcare, when you consider the entire spectrum of healthcare, we have a vast private healthcare system in place operating in Canada this very morning, okay? When we talk about universal healthcare, we're really talking about a trip to your family doctor or a trip to the acute care hospital. Think about the entire spectrum of healthcare and all the private healthcare that's out there. Psychiatric care, psychology, the whole mental health care system and how that is delivered in Canada. Sure, there's a public system, but most of it is in the domain of private service providers. And we seem to accept that as a natural state of being. Long-term care, whatever you think of it, we have growing calls now to and for-profit delivery of long-term care. I would ask you, how long do you think the wait time would be for a room in a long-term care home if the only option was a government-run long-term care home? Trips to the dentist, the optometrist, massage therapy, sports, all of this is delivered through private service providers. It's private health care. And now you keep hearing this term. In recent years, this has cropped up in Canada, executive health care. We offer executive health care for the executive in you. We have people going to clinics in Ottawa, executive health care clinics right here in Ottawa. This idea that we have one universal, publicly funded, government-run healthcare system, equal treatment for all, fantasy land. Total total fantasy land. Rapid poll talkback hour. And it's not like it has to be a choice. Well, it has to be the Canadian way or the American way. Okay, can we have Swiss-style healthcare? Switzerland's healthcare system is always ranked higher in global ratings than Canada's healthcare system. Every citizen of Switzerland must buy health insurance. By law. It's the law. And the poor in Switzerland get vouchers so they can afford the health insurance. But they still have to buy it. It's like auto insurance. And they have deductibles. But it's a universal system. Everyone gets healthcare coverage. Similar in France. And according to all the global experts, France's healthcare system is truly one of the best in the world and far superior to ours. Almost every citizen in France buys healthcare insurance. 90% of the population has healthcare insurance. 90% of the population uses private hospitals. Singapore, always near the top of global rankings in healthcare. They do it a different way. They have a social welfare savings account. The government sets it up for you when you are born. And then it takes 37% of your earnings. Thank you. Right off the top. And you tell the government where you want that money to go. I want it to go into a retirement savings account. I want it to go to education. I want it to go to healthcare. Singapore. Always near the top of the list when it comes to the global rankings of modern economies. The delivery of healthcare. Here, we don't even want to look at something like that because, you know what? You might be labeled a Mike Harris clone and have Justin Trudeau fearmonger his way and lie his way all across the country. Michelle in Ottawa. Michelle.
Two terrifying Trudeau and phony fake news Freeland are failing the Canadian people by continuing to perpetuate this fear about two-tier. We need it. We need two-tier. And Maria, the paramedic, explained it beautifully why we need it. And as far as being scared about not having enough trained and adequate people to supply these positions, where is Trudeau going to get 7,500 doctors? He's been in there 6 years. Where are all these doctors waiting at home to get a call to come in and work? Come on. Let's be real here. We need it. It's time to look at it. MRIs. I had a relative this past COVID period who had a wicked headache, very concerned about perhaps brain tumor. Went to hospital, was given the, go have an MRI. Wait list here was too long. The family didn't want to wait since we've recently lost one. Right over to Quebec. Bang. Paid the money, got the MRI. Everything was good. Worth every penny. I mean, it's time to embrace it. It's fear-mongering and it's wrong and Trudeau's too terrifying to give him another.
Too terrifying. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Oh, look who's calling. It's Bernie. Good morning, comrade.
Good morning, Rob. Good subject to get on this morning. I see the Tories are in favor of privatization, but that doesn't surprise me. I like to see the medical care include dental care and pharmacare, and I say if you need money, go tax the rich for the deficit and for the health care system in this country. There's enough money around. There's lots of money there. It's there. They just got to have the will to do it.
All right. Thank you, Bernie.
Okay.
Solidarity, brother. Talk to you later. David in Ottawa. David.
In response to Bernie, I'm certainly glad I'm not rich. I'd lose all of it.
David, are you in favor or opposed to more private delivery?
I'm going to put a caveat. I'm not going to say, yes, dash out the door and set it up and do it right now. But we do need to investigate which portions of our healthcare system will benefit from two-tier. Some may and some may not.
Okay.
You know, but we just can't sit back and say, no, we shouldn't do this. No, this is un-Canadian and whatever. Go out and have a look. Add the pros and cons. Add the deficits and credits on the balance sheet. Do all of those things and say, okay, this is what we can do. We'll do it more effectively for the same or less cost, and everybody gets in when they need to. And if there's another way of doing it, it's something the government needs to hold on to, and will do it just as well, and is just as important, well, leave that too. But we shouldn't be afraid to go out and see what we can do and have the will to do it if it adds up that way.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you. I think this will be the last call here. And it's Bruce in Elmer. Bruce.
Yeah, Rob.
Hey, Bruce, where do you stand on this issue of private delivery for healthcare? Opposed or in favor?
Well, I'm not standing right now. I'm sitting, and I'm sitting in my dentist's office about to get an implant.
Okay.
which is going to cost me $5,000.
Ooh.
So we already have a two-tier system. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I want to address and the whole sacrosanct aspect of it. We can't talk about anything else because it's a slippery slope. The one thing that many people have said is if we have a private system, it's going to take doctors out of the public system. The reality is we can put more doctors through medical school if we want to. The reason we don't now is because every doctor adds a bill to the government. And the government says, how many doctors can we, quote, afford to have? But if we take a lot of those doctors out of the public system and put them into the private system, we'll just put more doctors through the schools, and we'll end up with net more doctors, and it's not going to cost the taxpayer anymore.
Okay.
So I think we just got to get past that phony reality that there's a limited number of doctors, and everyone that goes to the private sector comes out of the public sector.
Okay. I thank you, Bruce. Good luck today at the dentist. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Well, I have it. Did you keep score? I have it as 19-2. Is that how you have it, David?
Yes.
19-2.
19-2.
I wonder what this means for the next federal election. Conservative sweep, the big blue wave.
Coming
our way.
That's a win for the good guys.
No, look, I thank you so much for having an opinion. It's such an important issue. And as I said, it has certainly seized the election campaign this week. Now, tomorrow, guess what we're doing? 3 more election questions, all during the Talkback Hour. Back after the news, Valley View on the way. My friend Bruce McIntyre from the Eganville Leader on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now under a heat warning and feeling in the mid-30s. It's 26 degrees in Ottawa, 25 in Smith Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Councillors who are pushing for an emergency transit commission meeting renewed that call today at Marion Dewar Plaza at City Hall. They invited anyone with questions for either the bus service or rail service troubles over the last couple of weeks to air them in this public forum. Councillors thought the fact a double-decker steered off Carling into a ditch and an LRT car lost one of its axles off the rails should be addressed at the emergency meeting. But both Mayor Jim Watson and the Transit Commission Chair rejected the call. The Mayor and Alan Hubley say the next transit meeting on September 20th, along with regular updates from OC Transpo officials, are enough to address the problems. City News Time 11:01. Latest COVID numbers in Ontario show 660 additional cases today and one more death. Of the new cases, Ottawa has 29. There are 2 in Eastern Ontario's health unit, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. No new cases today in Renfrew. The province says just over 26,000 tests were completed for the numbers and a positivity rate of 2.4%. Small business in Ontario pressing the province for details on when they can fully reopen. Dan Kelly with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says many of his members are stuck in a semi-permanent state of partial closure.
And now they're only able to serve up to half of their normal capacity. They have no prospect to know when these restrictions are going to be lifted and no additional help from government to try to make it through to the other side. That's just deeply, deeply unfair.
Now, the Chief Medical Officer of Health has not said what vaccination rate he would like to see to allow businesses to fully reopen. More on COVID plans, this time for schools, coming up. But first, your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, heads up for showers and thunderstorms today, mainly for the afternoon into the evening. The high 32 degrees will feel like 38 with the humidity 21 for the low. More scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning, then becoming partly cloudy. The high, though, still quite warm, 31. For today, the high 32.
And right now it is feeling in the mid-30s already. It's 25 degrees in Smith Falls and 26 in Ottawa. Debate over COVID-19 safety policies for the coming school year is set to continue.
With 2 weeks until the new school year, Ottawa's largest school board has yet to come to a decision on a masking policy for kindergarten students or if it will go any further with vaccine mandates for staff. Mark Fisher tells City News they need time for further discussion, but something else may be coming down the pipe.
It's a question of what can we do, to make our schools as safe as possible, and obviously we want to see what happens, what other directives might be coming from the province within the next week or so.
He says they've spoken with their legal advisors that they can contemplate a vaccine mandate, and they've agreed with public health that they plan on doing everything they can to make schools safer for all students and staff. Chris Curry's City News.
City News Time 11:03. A Canadian military aircraft with more than 500 evacuees flew out of Kabul today. One of a stream of military planes that took off as evacuees lined up on the tarmac. Others desperate to get on a flight remained outside, some standing knee-deep in sewage and waving their identity documents at Western soldiers in hopes of being allowed to go beyond the barbed wire fencing. Our Immigration Minister, Marco Mendicino, says Canada is keeping boots on the ground and planes in the air for as long as is possible. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Heave-hi-ho, the best man in Ottawa was Mopperoy Joe. Big Joe Mopperoy paddled into Mattawa all the way from Ottawa in just one day. Hey, on the river Ottawa, the best man we ever saw was Big Joe Mopperoy, the old folks say. Come and listen and I'll tell you what the old folks say. And he say Big Joe had an old pet frog, bigger than a horse, and he barked like a dog. And the only thing quicker than a train upon a track was Big Joe riding on the bullfrog's back. Heave-hi-ho, the best man in Ottawa was Mopperoy Joe.
time for Valley View. Bruce McIntyre is here from the Eganville Leader. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Now, listen, give me all the election news from up the line. What's going on up there?
We have some more candidates.
Okay, all right.
We have Stefan Gleach, who originally ran for the Green Party about 2015. He ran federally for the Greens.
Yep. And
2019, he jumped to the Libertarians. And this time around, 2021, he is going for the Libertarians as well. So that is for the Libertarians. The Green Party is once again being represented by Ian, I think it's Smith. His last name escapes me right now, but he is an instructor at Algonquin College in Pembroke, and he placed last year. And then we have our three that were already established. We have Cindy Mills, the Liberal, Jody Patil from Deep River. She is for the NDP. And last but not least, our incumbent MP, winner of 7 straight elections since 2000, Cheryl Gallant, also known as Irish Guy Gallant.
7 straight elections, right?
Yeah, but nothing.
So, listen, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there any reason at all to think her re-election is in jeopardy?
No. That's a pretty firm no. As I mentioned last month.
And it's not, can I just say this? Your paper, the paper of record, for Renfrew County and for her riding,
yes,
has really taken her to task.
We have.
Right? And kind of called her out, more or less.
We credit her when she does something correct, often, but then we also criticize and draw attention to when she does something negative.
Yeah. Does she prompt a lot of letters to the editor and that kind of thing, Bruce? Or
only when she makes the headlines.
Only when she makes the headlines.
And we'll have the usual letters. Oh, it's an embarrassment. She doesn't speak for me. She doesn't speak the riding. What about the other 70% that didn't vote for?
Right.
And you'll have the supporters that will write in and say, good for you, Cheryl. Keep going. Stay strong. So it's really the one of the strengths of her re-election campaign, election after election, is thumbing their nose at the big guys, the party backroom boys, operatives, the party machine. They are very proud of her campaign team. Takes great pride in doing what the campaign asks them not to do, and they win. They win. So what can you say? I mean, don't mess with the formula.
Yeah, and I guess if they're the party, I mean, it's one of the safest conservative seats in the country now. It's like an Alberta seat, basically. It's like a rural Alberta seat, basically.
We look at our MPP and our minister, or the parliamentary assistant to the premier, John Uguccioni. Same thing. Last election, he had the highest popular vote of any.
Yeah, but Yakubuski's never been nearly as controversial as she has been.
No.
I mean, John has just got this down-home, retail charm of a old-school politician to me,
He does. And the only controversy he's gotten into, really, is when he was first elected, he was speeding back and forth to Toronto. And he racked up the points.
He racked up the points, yeah.
He had to go in and talk to the JP, who he knew very well. I'm not sure who the JP was. He would have known him anyway, and put his, beg for forgiveness, and it won't happen again. And he was close to having an extension back in the early days. He really was. We joked to each other because I was kind of running the points up as well. And we were going to have a little race to see who gets our license first. But all
right, hold on. You got to sit still or stand still or do something. Your phone is.
I'm sorry. I was just looking out the window. I apologize.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's much better now, Bruce. Now, I just and I don't want to kind of belabor this, but it's it's election season, so it's the time to talk about it. And we and during our weekly conversations, we really haven't talked a lot about federal politics in your writing, but is there a difference, say? Does the town vote one way, or the kind of the more municipal areas, like in town, they vote kind of this way, and the more you get out of, say, Renfrew or Arnprior, maybe like into smaller places like Killaloe and these kinds of places?
There's definitely a division.
A division, okay.
The more rural communities, your Killaloes, your Palmer Rapids, those communities, almost 90% go for Cheryl. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And we do have a pocket. Deep River and Chalk River is a strong NDP presence because it's nuclear energy, and you have a lot of people from around the world who are world trained, and they recognize, they affiliate themselves with the NDP as a more progressive form of politics. For the Liberals, they used to have a stronghold in Pembroke and in the West Beachburg area, but that's kind of gone the wayside. They can't guarantee that anymore. Renfrew is pretty much a split, and Armfire, surprisingly, is Cheryl country. That's very much surprised me. Being so close to Ottawa, I thought it might have a negative effect, but no, they are very strong. The last few elections, they've gone strong for Cheryl.
I guess all the power to her. She's been there since 2000, right? She's been there since the year 2000. But before that was a bastion of Liberal support. Going back to the late 70s, that riding was not always like that.
It was one of the safest Liberal ridings. Right there with York Centre in Toronto.
Again, you must be wandering close to the window there. You're starting to fade away.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Rob. It's just my phone. I was getting new one, I guess. But it was originally held by Len Hopkins.
Len Hopkins,
for more than 20 years. And then Hec Cloutier. Won the contest, the Liberal nomination in 97. And he was elected. And then the famous meltdown at the gun club in 2000 when he told all the gun owners, he just basically said, get over it. C-16 is going through. Now just get used to it. And the way he presented himself was incorrect. He admits that. It was a big mistake he made, And that Cheryl just took that and ran with it. And she's been running that gun lobby ever since. But he had the meltdown.
So it was it was the gun registry then?
Yes, Alan Rock's famous C-68. That was under fire again. Even though it was introduced in the early mid-90s, it was still a hot topic in 2000. And she's been riding that shotgun ever since.
Give him Hec Cloutier, right? Give him Hec
Cloutier.
Give him Hec
Cloutier.
Yeah.
And as you say, Rob, it was strictly Liberal. You couldn't find enough stories of stuff in a phone booth back then, and now it's complete opposite. And it's very, very weird it's done that way. Yeah. But as you say, 21 years Tory, and before that, probably 30 or 40 Liberal.
Yeah. Do you ever see Hec Cloutier around? He's still around, right?
I do. I see Hec quite a bit.
Does he still wear the fedora and everything, or
with the red trim?
Really? Yeah.
He is still running. He ran his sixth Boston Marathon, was he last year or the year before?
Wow.
He's now a senior citizen, 70 years old.
Wow.
He's a lean, mean machine, that Mr. Cloutier. And he's a tough little guy. He may be only 5 foot nothing like me, but he could probably scrap 2 or 3 guys down. He's tough. And he was Prime Minister Gretchen's favorite MP. They had a great time together. So
isn't that something? Okay, well, let's get. I've got the paper here. Thank you for my copy of the paper. The Eganville leader's been independently owned since 1902. Bruce started there in 1905. It's Renfrew County's largest paid circulation newspaper. Okay, it's on newsstands today. $2 tax included, right?
What a deal!
Screaming deal. And so Killaloe has a new fire station. I find the price to be kind of eye-popping. $2.2 million. Must be quite the fire station.
You announced when the first was announced.
Okay, hold on. Can't hear you again. Hold on.
Sorry.
That's better. Thank you.
$2.2 million.
$2.2 million.
The price tag. And it sounds expensive, but there weren't a lot of bells and whistles. It's a very good station. It does the job. It functions. Yeah. But the problem was they needed a new station. It wasn't a case of, they needed one due to the fact their fire trucks could no longer fit in the hall. It was just so outdated. And it's now a very modernized station. It'll also act as an emergency headquarters in case there's a declaration called. And it's a very large volunteer fire department. And you know what? These guys and gals do amazing work and want to have them a place they can be proud of. I'm not one for frivolous spending of tax dollars, but that's what it costs to build. That's what it costs to build. That's unfortunately the reality of 21st century. It's a lot of money, but I dare you to put a building up for less than $1 million these days, Rob, of that size and what they need.
$2.2 million. I guess that's the going rate for a new fire station.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the mayor, Janice TJ, she was front and center. She got a little soaking down from the firemen, but she's been their mayor now for over 25 years, and this is something that she really wanted to get done as a legacy project for her and her council. And they should be proud. They took a lot of flack. They did take a lot of flack from the constituents because it's a very small municipality. It's a big chunk of change out of their reserves, but it's something they felt they had to do, and they'll take the criticism and they will take the attitudes as well.
Okay. So for many weeks, you and I talked about the fate of the caboose in Renfrew, the Canadian Pacific Railway caboose that's there. What's the latest? Is it off to the scrapyard for the caboose?
No.
What's going on there?
The Thomas the Train reject was saved. It is now going to be a permanent fixture for as long as they can maintain it. They had a meeting last week at the town council, and the vote was 5-4, 2 against. And going in, it did not look good for the caboose. It really didn't. Former mayor and now current councillor Sandy Hines presented a very, very well-researched report on how they can make this viable. Originally, they thought it was going to cost $600,000 to fix that caboose up.
$600,000 to fix up a caboose.
I know.
Holy cow. You could go probably buy a new caboose for $600,000.
I know. It was crazy. I mean, you could look at Donald Trump's inside his apartment, all gold. That's what they were looking at, I think. But they said, listen, we've got community volunteers. They want to do the work. They will step forward. They will paint it. The big concern they had is lead paint. That was a big concern. But you know what? They have some good crews there. They're raising money. They've been given money from town, and off they go. So she presented a 5 point. I know you're laughing. But you know what, Rob? It's amazing. I went there Sunday to take a picture, and honest to God, there's a family from Sudbury. And I said, what brings you down here? And he said, the caboose. They read about it online somewhere. They wanted to come see it before it got taken away.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the little train.
The caboose is finally getting some respect. Okay.
Finally. No, it's a mainstay in the park, and ironically, within the next 2 years, that park is going to be moved over a bit. We have new development going on in that strip, O'Brien Road. We have new stores and restaurants coming in, so the caboose will be front and center in all that mayhem. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
All right, Bruce, that's it. That's our time this week.
Where did it go?
Yeah, I know. It flies by. Look, it's always great to have your insight and tap into that institutional knowledge of yours. Thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Rob. Have a good week.
Yep. Eganville Lietaer out today. It's the best deal in the valley. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manatic, the Manatic Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub, along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, We'll go out of our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In just a few minutes from now, Pat Uguccioni is going to join us, managing editor, Your Community Voice newspaper. Is one of the federal races that he's keeping an eye on in this election campaign is Canada Carleton. It's very much in his newspaper coverage area, and he's going to join us and kind of break it down for us. Then after the 11:30 news, Laura Shantz is going to join us. We'll get a live update from this demonstration protest in front of City Hall over the performance of public transit lately. There's a rally about the troubles with light rail and the double-decker buses. So that's coming up. And Sue Schering, longtime City Hall columnist with the Ottawa Sun. And that'll wrap up the Rob Snow Show for today. And we'll make way for the Sam LaPrade Show, which comes at you every Monday to Friday right after the noon news. Right now we have several government ministers, including the Minister of National Defense, Harjit Sajjan, updating the media on the evacuation efforts for Afghans. Let's listen to a little bit of this right now. This is City News.
Thank you. Following question.
Reporters' questions right now.
Our next question is from Mélanie Marquis from La Presse. Thank you. Good morning. My question is for Minister Garneau. I'm sorry.
Mark Garneau is also there, the foreign minister.
CBC is reporting that there's only 24 to 48 hours left to get airports off the ground in Kabul. Could you give any specific information about that?
Merci.
Thank you for the question, Melanie. As Minister Sajjan said clearly, at the moment, we are using every possible opportunity to evacuate people with our Canadian flights. We will continue to do so as long as is possible. We can't give you a specific answer right now as to when the flights will conclude, but we are ready to continue as long as possible. However, as Minister Sajjan clearly said, you should know that the Americans intend to leave on August 31st. That means that the 12 other allies would have to be done their evacuations before then. So that is a hard deadline on when we would need to end the flights. But the exact date will remain to be determined. Okay, as a follow-up, is it possible that refugees might cross the land border and that we could then help them from a neighboring country? And I'm not sure I understood regarding the dates. Mr. Trudeau said that we might be prepared to stay beyond August 31st. So, Minister Garneau, what does that mean exactly? Would there be soldiers remaining? Would there be other operations continuing? Well, the Prime Minister did clearly say that, but he said if circumstances allow and if safety could be ensured. As you know, and as Minister Sajjan said, currently the U.S. is planning to exit the country by August 31st. Now, concerning the option of having people cross the border into a third country, yes, absolutely. If vulnerable Afghans are able to exit Afghanistan and get to a neighboring country, our consulates and embassies are already prepared to welcome them and to take care of them in the eventual goal of bringing them to Canada.
Okay.
So we know that this
We're going to leave that. That's a briefing that's happening right now. We have several members of the Trudeau cabinet with Mr. Garneau saying they're committed to evacuating as many people as they possibly can out of Afghanistan, but the United States still has this firm deadline of the 31st of August. So it's 11:25 here on the Rob Snow Show. Let's take a look at the one of the local races. Pat Uguccioni is here. He's the managing editor of your Community Voice, Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. So let's talk about that race in Canada-Carleton. Right now, who do you think is the front runner out there, Pat? What's your sense of it right now?
I just think with Canada taking up most of the riding, that the Liberals are probably still favored there, but the Tories have a long history in that riding, and they have a very good candidate, so it should be fairly close. But it has gone Liberal the last two elections, and I don't see anything why that would change. But as you know, campaigns matter.
Sure. Well, it's a Conservative riding provincially. Right?
It is,
and it does have a history.
It does have a history,
conservative history.
It does have a history, but with when they changed the riding 2 elections ago, it took in more of Canada than the rural area. So
right.
Yes, traditionally, but yes, certainly it is Tory provincially. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So with the new boundaries.
Yeah.
It has favored the Liberals.
It has.
Right.
When Karen McCrimmon took it away from Gordon O'Connor.
Okay, so let's work from the assumption that it's just a head-to-head, and it's really, in the end, this is kind of Randall's column today in the Ottawa Citizen. It's a head-to-head race.
It's
going to be the Conservative versus the Liberal.
That's right. And the NDP and the Green, while they have good candidates, as Randall said, not a history of electing NDPers.
Right. So does Jenna Sudds necessarily have an edge as well? In addition to maybe the boundaries of the riding working in favor of her, does she also have the edge because she's been the city councillor, or could that actually backfire because she comes across as an opportunist who's jumping ship early? What do you think?
Yeah, I really haven't heard anything except for a few rumblings from the riding association types or Liberal partisans that her jumping ship early it has had much of an effect, or she's hearing it much at the doors. So, but I certainly would think that her being the councillor for Canada over the last 3 years, and some of the successes she's had certainly will give her an advantage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about who the Conservatives are running out there.
Jennifer McIntrye. I don't know a lot about her. She is a small business person. Her and Shanna Sudds do have a history together with their involvement both in the Ottawa Tech Park, the Canada North Business Association. So a lot of similarities between them, as Randall pointed out in his column. She's a very credible candidate, and she's working hard, and she's been nominated some time ago.
Entrepreneur, MBA.
Yeah,
you're right. Very impressive, right? Yeah.
Difficult in a pandemic campaign, but if you get to meet her, I think you'll hear someone that knows the issues and is a very, very credible candidate, a very good candidate. I mean, the Tories in the last election did close the gap a bit with against Karen McCrimmon, so it doesn't take much more to get over the top, but it'll be difficult. I'd have to say.
But it'll be difficult. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Only because of that concentration. There's much more of a vote in Canada than there is in the rural area where the Tories are traditionally stronger. I think Jenna has an uphill battle in the rural area because she won't be known there.
All right. Thanks for checking in, Pat. Great to hear from you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Pat Uguccioni's the managing editor of your Community Voice newspapers, Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. Rob Snow Show, City News.
News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Wednesday, the 25th of August. Good morning, I'm Jason White. A heat warning in effect right now, partly cloudy, 27 degrees in Ottawa, 28 in Smiths Falls, the humid X36. Here's what's making news this hour. Happening now at Ottawa City Hall, a rally to protest the lack of public transit commission meeting over recent axle problems on the O train. The Transit Commission chair rejected calls for a special meeting to discuss an empty out-of-service train slipping off the rails at Tunney's Pasture earlier this month and the work being done to fix the problem. The rally continues. Debate over mandatory vaccinations continues at Ottawa's largest school board. Last night's marathon meeting of the Ottawa Carleton District School Board ended with plans for another meeting and hopes for more provincial COVID-19 guidance to come between now and then. A woman in her 60s is in serious but stable condition after an early morning crash on the Aviation Parkway at Eganville. Firefighters had to extricate the woman from her vehicle. She was taken to hospital by paramedics. No word yet on the cause of the crash, but all lanes have reopened. A BMW dealership on Hunt Club withdrawing its application to build a parking lot on 4 acres of forest. The plans drew opposition from residents upset at the potential loss of trees, some of which are more than 60 years old. City News Time, 11:33. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So you may be aware that there was a request from some Ottawa City councillors to hold an emergency meeting of the city's Transit Commission, and that was denied. Councillors like Diane Deans, Catherine McKenney, they made the request to the commission chair, Alan Hubley, because they want to get some answers on the ongoing issues with the city's light rail trains and the double-decker buses. But they had no luck on that front. So there is a demonstration today, Ottawa City Hall, Marion Dewar Plaza, and Laura Shantz joins me now with Ottawa Transit Riders. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm super. Thanks for asking.
Are you at this rally right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. We're doing eyewitness news here, Laura. Okay, you're our eyewitness on the ground. What's it like there right now?
Well, we saw a good turnout today. I think we had close to 100 people, which isn't bad for middle of summer in a heat wave.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of people who are really frustrated here. We had councillors, we had members of Ottawa Transit Riders, we had a transit commissioner, all telling us that they've had enough, that we want some transparency, we want some answers, and that this whole string of memos doesn't cut it.
So what are some common complaints when you're mingling among the crowd? I know we're all wearing masks, socially distanced, double vaxxed, and taking all the precautions necessary, of course. But what are you hearing from people who rely on public transit, and what these problems mean for their everyday lives? What are you hearing about complaints and common complaints right now?
It's really a lack of confidence. It's knowing that we have a public transit system that works most of the time, but is it really, it just keeps breaking, and people need to know if they're going to rely on public transit, they need to know that the system is there when they need it. If the system runs good, great, 90% of the time, that's fine, but if you're stuck in that 10%, you're missing work, you're getting docked pay, you're missing doctor's appointments, paying fees for not showing up at the doctor, or you're stuck. Literally, some cases, people are stuck on these trains for an hour, and it's not acceptable. We need to have good quality, reliable service. We want people taking the train, taking our public transit system.
Yeah. And what about? I'm curious if the issue of the double-decker bus that slid into the ditch, if that came up at all, and if so, if you could give us a sense of that as well.
I think we didn't talk as much about the double-decker bus.
Right.
Definitely, though, it is adding to the concerns. It is, with everything being so bad with the train, it also starts casting the bus fleet and, some doubt on the bus fleet, and starts to make people wonder, is our whole system broken? And who's listening to us? We start to feel, we've got some great counselors who showed up today, but let me tell you, that was not full council. That was not 23 counselors there, and there's no comment from the mayor, and it it starts to feel like you're just twisting in the wind, that no one is actually taking you seriously and nobody wants to have these answers.
Okay. So you said in all you had one member of the Transit Commission there?
No, we had
one independent transit commissioner.
We had Citizen Transit Commissioner Sarah Wright-Gilbert.
She was there. Okay.
She was there, but we also had several councillors who are on Transit Commission.
Okay.
I can see right now there's Teresa Kavanagh. There was Catherine McKenney is somewhere around here. I'm trying to think who else. Riley Brockington. I see him right now.
Okay.
So there are some familiar faces, but we do not see the chair of Transit Commission. We do not see the vice chair of Transit Commission. And those kind of absences are a little bit glaring.
They are glaring. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Hubley's the chair. I don't know who is the vice chair of the Transit.
I believe it's Councillor Cloutier.
Oh, Councillor Cloutier. Okay. So, Mr. Manconi, who is the outgoing City of Ottawa General Manager for Transportation Services, says, we're going to provide an extensive look into RTM's root causes for this axle assembly problem, and we'll give you a big update on the 20th, which happens to be the day of the federal election, by the way. But, okay, so that's going to be a big news day on the Rob Snow Show. Can't wait for that day.
Absolutely.
But is that good enough? Can you wait until the 20th? What's your response to that from Mr. Manconi?
My impression is that it seems to me that there's a hope that people will just forget. That if we kick this can down the road another month, literally, that, there's so much going on with the federal election. As you mentioned, it's going to be busy news day, that hopefully people will just not have time to worry about what's going on at Transit Commission. To me, it seems like, kind of duck and cover and wait for it all to blow over.
Okay. I guess what surprises me the most, or what I shouldn't say surprises me, but really worries me the most is this started with, this was one axle on one car, and then the next thing you know, a quarter of the cars are out of service.
Absolutely.
And from what I understand, I was on vacation when it happened, but from what I understand, it was like pulling hen's teeth to try and get answers about what was going on. So there's a big, to me, there are these ongoing transparency problems. What do you think, Laura?
I'm in total agreement. I don't think, I think our citizens here in Ottawa, they deserve a lot better. They deserve to have clear, honest communication about what's going on with this train, about what's going on with our buses. They deserve to know what is happening. And, since day one with this whole train business, with this P3 and Rideau Transit Group and SNC-Lavalin, it just feels like we're being left in the dark intentionally, and that we're just supposed to, smile as someone spits on us and pretend it's rain.
Okay. Thank you, Laura, for the update live from the scene there at Marion Dewar Plaza at the rally about public transit in Ottawa. She is with the group called Ottawa Transit Riders. That's Laura Shantz. So right now in Brantford, Aaron O'Toole is the leader of the Conservative Party, and he is making his pitch to voters today. And it's about mental health.
Effects from this pandemic, and
equine therapy
the heroes of
facility in Brantford, Ontario.
In the front line, and who are now exhausted and in burnout after working long hours and losing patients.
Including our daughter Molly and our son Jack and their friends. Millions of young Canadians have spent a year away from their teachers, coaches, their friends, their mentors, or they've faced major changes in their lives. School closures and the lack of sports and other activities had a massive impact. We see alarming increases in eating disorders and rates of anxiety in young people. Our seniors have been stuck in isolation and unable to visit their children or grandchildren. 1 in 5 Canadians suffers from symptoms of depression, anxiety, or operational stress. Someone you know is struggling right now. The mental health crisis is the epidemic within the COVID-19 pandemic. Un Canadien sur 5 souffre de
One Canadian out of 5 is suffering from depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And some of the people around you are suffering from this at the moment. So,
your loved ones. A Conservative government is prepared to make the historic investments needed and to work with the provinces to build better, more connected mental health care systems for all Canadians. Canada's Conservatives will deliver the help Canadians need with our Canada Mental Health Action Plan. Un gouvernement conservateur va investir au bon endroit.
A Conservative government will be investing in the right place and work together with the provinces in order to have more efficient mental health systems. And through the Canadian Action Plan for Mental Health, the Conservatives will be acting in the interest of Canadians.
Increasing health transfers to the provinces by at least 6% per year. After coming through a pandemic, the Liberals decided a one-time top-up for health care was good enough. It isn't. As Prime Minister, I will double the current federal commitment to the growth of health funding, making an additional $60 billion available for health and mental health over the next 10 years. This will be the largest increase in federal health spending in a generation. It will reinforce and secure our public and universal health system. And it will enable the provinces to invest in mental health as the healthcare priority it is. Comme Premier Ministre, je vais doubler l'engagement fédéral.
So that is Aaron O'Toole in Brantford today. He is talking up healthcare, which and mental health care, which is very much a centerpiece of the entire healthcare package from the Conservative Party in this election campaign. And meantime, the Liberal campaign, of course, is doing everything it can to get hashtag two-tier O'Toole trending on Twitter. Try to say that 10 times fast. That's where we are, day 11 of the election campaign. When we come back, more on schools and the situation 2 weeks out from the start of school. Long school board meeting yesterday, this morning. We had a chance to speak with Mark Fisher from the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. He's a trustee with the board. You'll hear that next on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went, as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic, probably more. I'd have to do the math but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
1 FM and 1310 AM.
Let's talk about the school board meeting. Happened yesterday. Mark Fisher is here, trustee with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Morning, Mr. Fisher.
Good morning.
Nice to hear from you.
Good morning.
Long day yesterday.
It was.
Yeah. What did you learn from health officials? What was most interesting to you? I know health officials made a presentation to you.
Yeah, well, it's always great to have them participate in our meetings and really get an update first and foremost from our city experts when it comes to public health. And I guess there's a couple key messages that we certainly heard from them last night. I think, like the rest of Canada and the United States and other major economies, they're as concerned as others in terms of the Delta variant and the fact that it's more contagious, it can spread more easily. And so they're clearly concerned about that and what that might mean for Ontario and our school system. We heard loud and clear that they still feel that we need to have a layered approach in terms of, how we're protecting homes, how we're protecting our communities, and ultimately our schools, whether that's through, masking and cohorting and social distancing, improved ventilation. All those things need to continue in their view. And I think they were quite clear that they are supportive of anything that we can do as a school board to increase vaccination rates. Whether it's our staff, obviously with our students it gets a bit more complicated, but certainly with our employee base, they were supportive in anything that we can do to increase the vaccination rates amongst our staff. And that's all focused on creating the safest bubble possible, for our schools. We've got, roughly 40,000 students, that's 52% of our school population that are under 12 and who are not vaccinated. So we've got a significant sort of challenge or duty of care to make sure that we're creating as safe as a learning environment as possible for those students, but also for our employees. Okay. So what advice did they have for you? Well, I think in terms of, vaccine mandates, obviously we're seeing, this issue, come forward in a number of different settings. We've seen it with university colleges. We saw the big banks, I think, last week come out with their own mandates. And their view is that they're certainly supportive of vaccine mandates, but it depends on the organizational context, right? And so we're going to have to look at that as a school board and see, what additional directives might be coming from the province. We understand that they are looking at these issues, and more might be coming in the weeks ahead. And then what do we need to do as a school board to perhaps fill in the gaps, when it comes to those protective policies? We certainly heard through, advice from our legal counsel that we have more than enough authority to contemplate a vaccine mandate for our employees, whether it's through the provisions of the Education Act or, for the Occupational Health and Safety Act. It's a question of what can we do, to make our schools as safe as possible. And obviously, we want to see what happens, what other directives might be coming from the province within the next week or so, as it relates to this issue. But the solicitor for the school board told you that he or she, thinks that you're on pretty solid footing there if you wanted to go down the vaccine mandate road. 100%. We looked at both sides of this issue. We looked at it from an Ontario human rights perspective, and obviously the protection of those individual rights. And I think if we were to go down the road of putting in place a vaccine mandate for our employees, obviously we have to make sure that we're also providing accommodations and alternatives for individuals either come forward to say for medical reasons, with a note from a doctor, valid medical reasons I can't get vaccinated, or on religious grounds or what have you. There are certain provisions that we have to make sure that we are being responsive to from a human rights standpoint. And as long as we're taking into account those issues and looking at how we would accommodate those, when they come forward, in the broadest sense, we certainly have enough of a statutory legal authority to look at or to contemplate a vaccine policy for our employees.
Yeah. Then the question becomes, what if somebody refuses?
Correct.
What do you do? Do you accommodate that person? Do you find another job for them? What were you told about that?
Well, we discussed it briefly, but I think there, obviously, the first tier is, for medical religious reasons, we have to look at alternatives and accommodations, and obviously, if we look at the provincial directive that has come out that says, there needs to be proof of vaccination, or there needs to be, sort of medical grounds for not getting vaccinated, or, an employee has to take this education program, still wondering what that's going to be. But if we have an employee who obviously refuses all those things, then there needs to be, I think, a more intense discussion, with that employee about, where they fit within the school system, within the school board, in terms of in terms of their work and sort of what they can do. I think as an employer, I think we want to try and create as safe as environment as possible within our schools, within our main buildings. And so, obviously it's hard to sort of forecast, the number of employees that might refuse all of those things that they're being asked to do. But, I think from a human resources standpoint, staffing standpoint, if we do have those cases, we have to sit down and have a very real conversation about how they fit within, the values of the school board, but also, where they can continue to work within that context.
Okay. What's been decided and what has yet to be decided on masks, and who will be wearing masks and where they will be wearing masks?
Well, right now, it's a great question, Rob. So right now, the mask mandate is a provincial directive, so we have very little control over what exists right now. Last night we did have some discussion about whether or not that mandate, should be extended to the kindergarten grades. We had that debate last year as well. I think what we heard from Ottawa Public Health is that they would be supportive of sort of mandating masks within those younger years. But I also know that a lot of parents of kids of that age group are still concerned about the viability of them wearing a mask, throughout a full school day, right? And, obviously, and I think broadly, we certainly understand that, masking coupled with all these other things that students are being asked to do in terms of cohorting and social distancing, that there's an anxiety, there's a level of stress that we've seen throughout the pandemic that we didn't see before the pandemic. And, so I think anytime that we are, debating and discussing mask mandates and these other things, we have to take in the broader well-being of our students. And I think that's particularly true for our youngest learners. And so I think we haven't made a firm decision about which way to go, but we are listening and seeing whether or not it needs to be applied to that to those younger years, and especially in the context of Delta, which we know is potentially more contagious and more dangerous.
Okay, I'm old enough to remember, Mr. Fisher, getting vaccinated at school.
Yeah, me too.
You are? Okay. Has there been any talk about that? I mean, I know for 12 plus, the vaccination rates are really good anyway, but has there been any talk about bringing clinics into schools?
Well, it's a great question. So as part of the back-to-school planning that the province announced a week or so ago, they did talk about bringing clinics closer to schools in order to create more opportunities for students to get vaccinated. We still need to work with Ottawa Public Health to understand what that might look like. And I think that that's a real opportunity in terms of making sure that we're as vaccinating as many people as possible and educating our students about vaccines as well. In Ontario, there isn't a particular age of consent like there is in other provinces in terms of making decisions about your own health. Not to say that we want our students showing up and making that decision on their own without discussing discussing it with their parents. But, I think there is an opportunity to use these clinics to get those vaccination rates up for 12 to 18 to even higher levels, in the city. And I think the specifics will come hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But to your other point, there is a history of vaccinating kids in schools. In fact, my son, when he was in, grade 7, grade 8, there was a vaccination campaign for those regular vaccines that we have to take as students, under the Immunizing School Pupils Act in Ontario. And so we still vaccinate kids in schools, for a suite of different issues, viruses and diseases. And I know that the province is looking at adding COVID-19 to the Immunization of Student Pupils Act, and whether or not that will happen in the next couple of weeks. But I know that the province is considering adding COVID-19 to the list of things that need to be vaccinated.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
Mark Fisher is a trustee with the Ottawa Carleton District.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
The Rob Snow Show, brought to you by...
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.